And good afternoon. Thanks for joining us on your MTN statewide news on this Monday. I'm Andrea Lutz. The Bear Creek fire southwest of Dillon has grown to over 6,000 acres with 10% containment. Fire officials saying this fire made a sizable jump on Saturday alone, adding roughly 2,000 acres to its size. The fire is burning in the Lemhi Pass area of the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest. The fire was started by lightning. New mapping on the inside of the fire caused that increase in acreage, and fire crews say fire activity is expected to increase due to poor relative humidity. People recreating on Clark Canyon Reservoir should be aware that that fire is burning in that area. Fires are also raging across southwest United States as temperatures climb into the triple digits. For the first time in history, the National Weather Service issued a fire tornado warning. The heat from a fire at the Nevada border is extreme enough to create its own weather conditions. Multiple fires are raging in California as well, and residents are facing rolling blackouts as the record-breaking heat is stressing the state's electrical grid. Hundreds of thousands have lost power. And of course, we're thinking about our own fire activity in our state and those extreme heat conditions that we're going to be seeing probably.
That's right. Yeah, we get very hot temperatures down in the areas in the southern portion of California. We've had a lot of heat, and now it's starting to build up in Montana. Of course, it was a hot weekend, and today we're running the potential for some record-setting temperatures. Most of the major reporting stations across Montana and northern Wyoming are going to be within a few degrees of record highs or bust right through those records by later in the day. So hot and dry conditions, low relative humidity numbers will be the big story. What we don't have a lot of in much of the state is wind, but some areas are under a fire weather watch and red flag warning, and we'll talk more about that coming up with the complete forecast details in just a few minutes from now. There's a lot of hot temperatures you'll want to learn about, and we'll tell you about it coming up.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Ed, for that. This afternoon, we're seeing a lower number of COVID-19 cases from across the state. There are 43 new cases, leading with the highest number, 15, both from Flathead and Yellowstone counties. Death toll still standing at 82. And the total number of COVID-19 tests around the state is over 204,000. In Wyoming, 59 new cases were announced on Sunday. 38 of those were in Carbon County. 513 residents are currently infected in the Cowboy State. 30 people have died since the pandemic began, and more than 2,600 Wyoming residents have recovered from COVID-19. A new saliva test could give Americans a faster and cheaper way to find out if they do have COVID-19. The Saliva Direct test was given emergency use approval by the FDA. Results could be available in about 3 hours and should be available to the public in just a few weeks. Researchers expect labs to charge about $10 per sample. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is calling lawmakers back from vacation to vote on a bill to stop changes to the U.S. Postal Service before the election. Democrats accusing the new Postmaster General of undermining the service in order to suppress votes. Nancy Chen reports from New York.
As the U.S. Postal Service gears up for an unprecedented number of mail-in ballots due to the coronavirus pandemic, Democrats are calling on President Trump's new Postmaster General to testify on recent changes he made that are causing delays in mail deliveries.
It's absolutely critical that we have a hearing and hear directly from the postmaster.
Democrats accuse Louis DeJoy, a major GOP donor, of using the agency to discourage mail-in voting in order to increase the president's re-election chances, something the president denies.
I have encouraged everybody, speed up the mail, not slow the mail.
A memo obtained by CBS News shows the Postal Service is in the process of removing 671 mail sorting machines nationwide. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows insists the machines will not be taken away before the election.
There's no sorting machines that are going offline between now and the election.
Last month, the Postal Service warned all 50 states that thousands of ballots may not be counted because mail-in ballots may not be processed fast enough for November's election.
In a statement Sunday, the Postal Service said it would postpone moving mail collection boxes for a period of 90 days while we evaluate our customers' concerns, though it said their removal is routine and related to declining mail volumes. The post office has asked for an additional $25 billion to help with processing the mail-in ballots, but the money is tied up in negotiations over a new coronavirus relief package. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
The Attorney General of Massachusetts is discussing a lawsuit with other attorneys general to prevent the Trump administration from making any further cuts to the post office. As many people worry about their local post offices closing, merchandise sales is up. Many Americans are trying to show their support as office hours get cut and get rid of equipment like high-speed letter sorters. The changes were made by the new Postmaster General, saying it's because of funding issues. Things like T-shirts, backpacks, and hoodies were selling out, and stamps have also been selling at a higher rate than usual. President Trump starts a week-long campaign tour. 4 stops are planned, with Minnesota and Wisconsin up first. Trump will visit Yuma, Arizona, where he's expected to talk about immigration. And then he will visit Scranton, Pennsylvania, where Joe Biden was born. It's the same day Biden plans to give his acceptance speech for the presidential nomination. And the Democratic National Convention, it kicks off tonight. Rather than bringing thousands of delegates to Milwaukee, the DNC opted to hold a smaller and mostly virtual event. Tonight, Senator Bernie Sanders will speak along with former First Lady Michelle Obama. The convention will end on Thursday, with Joe Biden being formally named the Democrats' nominee. The Republican National Convention takes place next week and will also follow a remote format. A new CNN poll shows Joe Biden's lead over President Trump has narrowed. 50% of registered voters say they support a Biden-Harris ticket, while 46% say they back Trump and Pence. That's right in the margin of error. According to the survey, voter enthusiasm is also high this year. Montana Fair in Billings wrapped up this weekend, and attendance was lower than it's been in years. Fair organizers say about 18,000 people visited the fair over a 17-day run. That's compared to 220,000 last year. The Mighty Thomas Carnival broke down its equipment on the fairgrounds and is heading to Miles City. And we are told everyone did follow those COVID-19 guidelines.
As I talk to you every year, I'm happy to say from the time we said we were going to try to have a fair and worked so hard to do it with many entities to make it work, I'm happy to tell you it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Dennis Pittman said, good or bad, there's people watching you. So you know what? You want to put on your best foot forward to make it work. And I feel that the mission that we were on met that goal.
And those with Metro Park expect to have official attendance and revenue numbers a little bit later this week. For the first time in 4 years, the Montana State Horseshoe Championships have made it all the way to Great Falls. 100 adults and 9 juniors spent their Saturday pitching those horseshoes in hopes of becoming a shoo-in for the national championship title. Despite the uncertainty surrounding this year's championship, though, more young competitors turned out this year than in years past.
I think last year at state we only had 3 people, and a couple years ago we only had 2, so 8 or 9 that we have today is really good, and we're really happy with that. We would like to get more juniors to go in, because once the older people start not playing horseshoes or stuff, it kind of dies out, so that's why we want more younger people in here to play.
Looks like fun. Up next, there is a new way the Red Cross is offering support during this challenging time. How volunteers are reaching out to help, we'll let you know. But first, Ed is in next. Those temperatures are supposed to be hot, so we'll check in with him.
Starts now with meteorologist Ed McIntosh.
Welcome back to the noon news. And as the temperatures heat up today, especially hot and dry conditions, the exception of few areas in western Montana where clouds are starting to move in. And as more moisture continues to arrive over the next few days, we'll talk a little more about thunderstorms that will start to develop, producing mainly gusty winds. And there is much of the region with a heat advisory into effect for today as the temperatures continue to edge up. Now, where we have some of the cloud cover, and thanks, Patty, for your report up into the Flathead Valley, where we have a bit more cloudiness holding the temperatures back. We're mainly in the 80s in the western portion of the state, 80s to low 90s. And then check out already in the upper 90s in Jordan and down in Sheridan, Wyoming, 89 in Miles City and Billings this hour, 92 for you in Livingston. After a coolish start, the temperatures have really taken off. And part of the reason is the low relative humidity numbers, down into the teens to 20s across much of the region, with just a few exceptions in western Montana. And that's continuing to drop as well. So the hot, dry air then added a little bit of wind, and we have fire weather concerns in north central and portions of northeastern Montana, and heat advisories into effect into the orange shaded regions for this afternoon into this evening. So if you have to spend time outdoors, make sure you try and limit it. Spend a little time in the shade, stay hydrated, wear the loose, light covered clothing if you can, and watch out for kids and pets in hot vehicles. Now we got some moisture that's continuing to stream up into western Montana. That's going to create some of the clouds for today. Mainly our big concern is any storms that develop. They'll dry out by the time they start to reach the surface and create more wind than actual precipitation. And then also smoke. As we start looking into the next 48 hours, we'll start to see more of southern Montana pick up a bit more of that smoke along the way. And that's mainly from wildfires over into California that Andrea was telling you about earlier. So we have the red flag warning across northern Montana, the heat advisory, the moisture starting to move in. But mainly today is going to be about how hot will it get by later in the afternoon as the 90s and triple digits move in. By tomorrow, the possibility of some of those stronger storms creating periods of wind start to increase in southwest Montana for you from Bozeman to Missoula down towards Dillon for later in the day. Still a heat advisory by tomorrow afternoon into much of the eastern plains. And then on Wednesday, as this disturbance starts to move in, it will trip off a few more of these showers and thunderstorms, and we could actually see a little bit of moisture start to reach the ground. But we're not expecting a lot to actually accumulate out of that. So for today, talking about 80s, 90s in triple digits for the daytime highs. The overnight temperatures drop down mainly into the 50s and 60s. Generally mostly clear. A few clouds will start to develop in southwest Montana that'll lead to more hot temperatures tomorrow and those isolated storms as we start looking over into areas of southwest Montana. So today is mainly about how hot will it get despite that cloud cover. We're looking at some cloudiness in the Flathead Valley. Missoula, you still have a warm afternoon. Temperatures start to back off into the 80s and 90s after that. Near triple digits around Great Falls and Helena for this afternoon. Then looking at a gradual cool down as we start getting into the week, but still above average for this time of the year. For Bozeman and Butte, looking at temperatures to be the hottest today. Check out 80s to follow through most of the rest of the week. Those overnight temperatures cool off a little bit with the dry air. Glendive and Billings could be up towards triple digits over the course of the next several days and back off just a bit towards the weekend. There's a look at the weather. Back to you.
Families struggling with the loss and grief due to the pandemic can get support from the Red Cross. The Red Cross recently began a virtual family assistance service with health services volunteers. MTN's Alexia Guayo has the story from Helena.
Abby Calusi is a disaster mental health lead volunteer for Red Cross. Although she has been volunteering for 3 years, Abby served a 2-month term virtually this year, something she says is not typical in her line of work.
Again, being a mental health volunteer, we're always there. We're always used to being in person with individuals, being able to hug them and being able to console them or put our hand on their shoulder. We weren't able, obviously, to do that.
Because of the pandemic, the Red Cross has stopped deployments. However, the same services are provided, but over the phone through the Virtual Family Assistance Center that Abby says began in May.
So it's a national database, so then the phone call just gets forwarded to your cell phone, and then you kind of take some background information, intake information from them, seeing what their support is, what they need. You know, virtual is some kind of connection to local resources, or if they did lose a family member, do they know how to have a memorial service or funeral service, not really being able to gather with other individuals.
And if needed, Abby also says she would follow up with individuals to see how they were doing. Overall, Abby feels grateful to help others in the pandemic.
But then definitely hearing the stories, you know, of people living in their cars because they have lost their job or their, place of residence, due to the disease. I'm very thankful for that. I haven't been impacted, but yet I'm able to give back to people who have been affected.
Anyone suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic is encouraged to contact the Red Cross Virtual Family Assistance Center for help. In Helena, I'm Lexi Guayo, MTN News.
And your latest ag news is coming up next with Russell Nemens.
Now, here's your Farm and Ranch report from the Montana Ag Network.
Hi everybody, it's time for your Farm and Ranch news. Well, ranchers have a new tool available for controlling invasive weed species on rangeland, CRP land, and even natural areas, including those grazed areas on these sites. Rejuvra is a new pre-emergent herbicide and restoration tool from Bayer Environmental Science that's showing consistent multi-year control of invasive annual grasses like cheatgrass, Japanese brome, Medusa head, and even ventonata. Steve Saunders is with Bridger Ag Ventures and is a consultant for Bayer Environmental Science and says, when pounds still equal dollars, Rejuvra is a game changer for ranchers.
And once it's incorporated into the soil, this unique herbicide lays there. It doesn't resolubilize and move deeper into the soil. It stays within a top half-inch of soil or less. And that's where all these annual seeds are located. So when a cheatgrass seed germinates and it pushes that root radical out of the seed, this herbicide residual is laying there waiting for it. And when it grows into that residual, it kills that radical. And then the cheatgrass or the ventonata never emerges again, and it just kind of goes away. But what the important part is, it releases all the native perennial desirables that a rancher needs to gain those pounds, and it lets them fully express themselves by making that amount of moisture, rainfall, and fertility of the soil available to grow stuff that they can count on for their pounds of gain.
He says another benefit of Rejuvra is its multi-year control.
That's right. What we are seeing with that 5 ounces of Rejuvra, we can apply it once, and we're seeing up to 5 years control. And that's what we know now, Russell, because we've only got work out in Montana that's 5 years old. It could go longer. Some work down in Colorado is 6 and 7 years old, and we still see excellent control.
And he says the cost effectiveness just makes perfect dollars and cents for ranchers.
So when you triple your forage production, you see a break even in about 2.25 years. And with the life of the improvement being around up to 5 years with one application, we're able to see a return on investment because we get the break even in 2.25 years. We've got the rest of that third year with no costs and the fourth and fifth year. So that's 2.75 years without additional cost, which then gives us a return on investment of 120%.
Now, if ranchers would like to learn more about Rejuvra, you're invited to participate in a free webinar on Tuesday, August 18th at 1:00 p.m. And Steve says to register, it's really easy. Just visit rejuvra.com. Well, stay with us. We'll have more ag news right after this. Cattlemen and cattlewomen will be in Billings for the Montana Stock Growers Association's mid-year meeting August 18th and 19th at the Northern Hotel. And they'll be discussing important issues facing livestock producers, make some decisions that'll help determine statewide policy, and of course network with fellow cattle producers. Hot topics this year to be discussed include cattle market disruptions, labeling, water rights, and livestock predation. MSGA will also be having their T-Bone Classic Gala Dinner and Golf Tournament August 19th and 20th, and it's all taking place at the Briarwood Golf Course in Billings. Now, for more information on both, you can visit mtbeef.org, and Lane Nordland and I will see you at both. That's a look at your farm and ranch news. Have a great day.
And obviously, we're thinking about those temperatures. They're going to be hot today.
That's going to be the big story. Fire weather conditions across northern Montana and those pink shaded areas. Heat advisories. Try to limit your time outdoors. And certainly, if there's anything that could start a spark, today is definitely a day to leave that in the shed. We'll be looking at temperatures gradually cooling as we get later in the week with isolated showers and thunderstorms that'll produce mainly gusty winds.
All right. Thanks, Ed. And we'll see you later.